Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Kaylee. Today I'm going to be doing a video I've surprisingly never fully done, and we've gotten a ton of requests for, and that is how we prepare for Apollycon. Now, Apollycon is this very large romance, fantasy, ton of different genres, but those are kind of the main two convention hosted by Jennifer L. Armentrout in Washington, D.C. Sarah and I have gone for the past 2 years. Unfortunately, we weren't able to secure tickets for next year, but I still figured if a bunch of people were able to get tickets, I can go through how we were able to see everything we wanted with the lowest tiered ticket. So the first year we went, we just had the deity ticket, which is the lowest tier, which means that you only get the Saturday signings. That's it. This past year, we had the deity ticket with the Friday add-on. So again, the only time for signing we had was Saturday, but we were able to go to the panels and do, there was like 2 other events on Friday that we were able to attend. Which I will say, if you're gonna do deity, the Friday pass is worth every cent. The panels themselves, I think this year they just called it a panel pass. I found the panel pass to be well worth the money. Considering I think the deity ticket's like $30 and the add-on I want to say was like what, 80 this year. Going to those panels was super interesting and it opened me up to a ton of new authors. Now, besides that, if you already have tickets, the first thing that we did, and by we I mean me, I am a huge planner and I plan well in advance. So once we secured tickets, what I will do is I will go through my entire physical bookshelves and pick out all the books that have an author attending Apollycon. And what I will do is I will take Post-it notes and just put them in the book like this. I do this literally right the day we got tickets is when I would do this. Just so I would have a visualization as to what books that I could potentially bring, the authors I want to keep an eye out, and as authors were added, taken away, I would make edits as needed. Now, I would do it for every book that I owned by the author. I wouldn't narrow it down just yet. This is just how I preliminarily did this. Along with that, I would also make a Google Sheets. And I can make a whole separate video on how I track my reading, but I am a data analyst, so I like to visualize my data. I'll try and put what I have up here. If not, I apologize. But I would make a Excel document and label every single book that I tagged with the author. And then I would also have a column if I've read the book. And then I would also have a column labeling it what format I read it in. So like there was a ton of books that I wanted to keep an eye on where it was potentially going to buy before the convention that I only read on ebook. So I would able to filter through that list as well. And I would go through everything. So with that, that's the first thing I did. I usually did that right when we were able to get tickets. I would just kind of let time go by. I wouldn't really need to do much otherwise. Booking the hotel and stuff like that, I did relatively quickly. I made sure to book a hotel within walking distance. We never booked at the Hyatt. It was a little too steep on price. We stayed at the Marriott in DC, which I know that there's a different location this year, but I will recommend the Marriott. Is budget friendly, really nice hotel, really easy to work with. You can get there early and they'll hold your stuff in a locked room so you can go and start doing event stuff right away. That was really nice as well. So I obviously did not look at hotels around the area. We were actually going to stay at the convention center this year had we gotten tickets, but I would have called that day because those do tend to book up very fast. It is also very nice to go with people you know because you can share expenses, but the hotel and then labeling all the books and creating that Excel document are the first things that I would do. Now, as time went on, obviously authors are added, vendors are added, stuff like that. People are taken away. It happens. So I would again just kind of keep an eye on that Facebook page and their Instagram. They post everything on there. If you are not a part of that group, I would very much recommend getting added to it because that is where all of any emergency things, Updates will be there throughout the entire convention. I'm pretty sure all 3 of us lived on that page the entire 4 days we were there, because there's some things, sometimes authors will post that they're doing like a fun little meet and greet, or some of the vendors are like, hey, we know that being in the rooms is crazy, you can pick up your pre-orders in the lobby, and that is only in that Facebook page. So make sure you're a part of that. As you get closer and closer to the event, pre-orders will come up. Now, like I said, with that Excel document that I had with everything labeled Kindle, stuff like that, once pre-orders started coming out, I would add to this document. I added 2 new columns, one labeled pre-ordered, and another labeled paid, question mark. So, because what'll happen with these pre-orders is it is not 100%, but you don't pay right away. You pay whenever their thing closes. Most of the authors will place something in that description of when they expect an invoice to go out. So I would make that note in the paid comments once I made a pre-order, and I would label everything I pre-ordered in that column of pre-order, or depending on how long the pre-order went for. A couple of them went for like 4 or 5 months. I would label want to pre-order, just because it can get expensive. And especially the ones that were pay right away, I would either do first, or I would save until subsequent paychecks. So just labeling everything that you've pre-ordered, which meant adding to my list, and just tracking when I would be expecting those invoices as well. And then again, not 100% of them, but most of the pre-order forms will send you a confirmation email. I created a whole folder in my Google of Apollycon pre-orders where I would put that confirmation email, just in case my pre-order got lost, my name was wrong, anything like that. I would be able to easily pull that. And yeah, just as pre-orders kept coming, not all authors announce all at the same time. There will be a giant pre-order thread that Melissa will post with all the links, and she will update it as more authors will post about it. So I would check that list probably once every 2 weeks just to see if anything was added, if anything was closed. There are a lot of really awesome people who will post a master list with the authors when they send out an invoice and the link to whatever that page to pre-order was. Definitely, it is so crucial to keep a track of your pre-orders, because you need to then make a game plan for said pre-orders when you go into those rooms. So you have your pre-orders, you've paid them, it's like 2 months before the convention. 2 months before the convention, I will go back and yank everything off my shelves and put into nice little piles that I have tabbed. Now, Apollycon has a rule of a 3-book limit for books you can get signed by authors. Now, a caveat to this is pre-orders don't count, because a majority of them will come pre-signed. They'll just add your name when you go and pick up your pre-order. So I grabbed Helena Hunting because she was the first one on my shelves that I just grabbed. I have pre-ordered from Helena Hunting every year, which means I can bring 3 books by her each time. So I would go through the shelves, see which ones I had signed, which ones I didn't, and pick 3. Now, if it is a first-time author to the convention, the way I like to do it is I will take, especially if they have multiple series, I will take the first book in each series that I've read or liked and have them sign that. So big example is with my first year for JLA. I grabbed From Blood and Ash, Shadow in the Ember, and The Darkest Star, because those are the series that I have read by her. This past year, I ended up bringing all the sequels, which was A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, Light in the Flame, and The Burning Star. So I just keep bringing different 3 books to have signed. But I mean, bring whichever books you want. If you have 3 books of a whole series and you want those signed, do what your heart tells you. For me, I like the spread of the wealth across all the series. I don't know why, but I do. So, especially because a lot of these authors have huge backlogs. I think the hardest ones for me this past year was picking what Katie Robert books I wanted. And then picking, oh gosh, there was one other. Scarlett St. Clair. I have so many of her books. It's ridiculous. But yeah, definitely keeping track, and then bringing only 3. So I would put everything back on the shelves that I didn't pick and then leave everything out to start preparing. I am a list maker. I would make a list of everything I needed to pack, shirts, clothes, toiletries, everything like that, because what we ended up doing is we would bring one carry-on, one personal item, and then we shared a checked bag. The check bags weren't terribly expensive. I think it was like $40 per check bag, which we found very worth it. But we would leave essentially the checked bag empty and then fill our carry-on bags with the books. My entire carry-on was just books, and in my personal item is where I put my clothes, my toiletries, all that kind of stuff. Just so it didn't take up room. I still had a ton of room in my personal item. And that way we had the most amount of space possible for coming back. So that's packing, doing your best to Tetris everything, try a bunch of different methods. Yeah, realistically just filling that carry-on bag, because 9 times out of 10, they will ask for people to check their carry-on free of charge, and they won't weigh it. So little bit cheating the system in that way. They never check the weight of your carry-on. They only check the weight of your checked bag. So keep that in mind. We have gotten some looks from the flight people who took our check bag or our carry-ons. That was funny. But yeah, so you are now packed and ready to go to Apollycon. This will be about the week before I will kind of figure out how the best way to pack. 2 weeks. I usually pack about a week in advance for trips. Especially one where space really, really matters, like this one. So next, around the 1 week to 2 week mark, there will be a post with the 2 maps. Now, when you do Apollycon, there are 2 rooms. You have your room in the morning and your room in the afternoon. Depending on what ticket you have, depends on where you start. We've always been ticket A, which meant we started in the Independence Center. Again, none of this really matters anymore because they're in a whole different location. I think they're still doing 2 rooms because they still did the A and B. But what I would do is I would save a picture of the maps, and then they will usually have a spreadsheet with the maps of where each author's booth is. So for this year, I ended up going into the map, which I will post one of them here, and labeling the authors that Sarah, Hannah, and I wanted to see, and label them, only them on this map. There were some people who labeled every single author and vendor on this map. I asked Sarah and Hannah what pre-orders they had and any authors they really wanted to visit, for either to see if their booth had books or just to visit. And from that, I labeled our entire map. Now, this year they did a different thing for the wristbands, which I actually thought worked really, really well. So we didn't quite understand how the wristband thing worked. So our game plan was a little wrong, but essentially our game plan was to go all the way around and grab wristbands, and then start going to authors that didn't have wristbands, essentially was the game plan. But when we got into there, the way the wristbands works is if there is a line, each author will have a volunteer at their booth to determine too long of a line and that it needs wristbands. So we got in there, and I think Hannah and I just jumped right into the Helena hunting line. No wristband, no anything, even though she was a wristbanded author. So what I ended up doing is kind of going all around. Once things got going, I was able to see 2 or 3 authors that were labeled as ticketed without needing a ticket. The only one that was ticketed to begin with was JLA, but she for us was in the afternoon. So I just what you do is you just go around in circles, but definitely have an idea as to where each author is, which is where the map came in handy. I saved a screenshot of it because, again, not sure how this will be at the Gaylord, but in the Hyatt, the internet was trash. So saving a screenshot really helped me. I was able to just grab my phone, zoom in, and be like, okay, I'm here. Where do I need to go? So this is where kind of labeling your pre-orders were, to make sure that you found each author. So the night before, when you are in the hotel, go through each room in that Excel sheet, and split your books. Doesn't matter how you packed them. Open them up, put them in piles and start going through who is in room A, who is in room B. You don't want to bring extra stuff. Books are heavy, especially if you are going to be picking up more books. You want to make sure that you're not carrying anything excess. So that's what we did the night before, is we split them into 2 piles. For this year, the ballroom was the bane of my existence. Majority of my authors were in the ballroom this year, which was fine. I figured it out. But last year it was actually the opposite. My morning was more chaotic. But if you get everything that you need, you have a list in your head. I also had, I use Notion for a lot of my note-taking stuff. So in Notion, I also made a checklist for every book that I had, every book or any pre-order I had, because I did pre-order from vendors. So I had a checklist for the entire weekend. And as I was waiting in line and doing stuff, I would go through and be like, okay, I would label the checklist, the book, author, what room they were in, and just filter by the room, check everything off as I got it, which is kind of nice because you're waiting in line a lot. So being able to just sort of check stuff off while waiting in line is really nice. And that's how I was able to keep track and make sure that I got everything that I paid for. And then, yeah, and then you can just kind of go about to your heart's content. I think this year I finished everything that I needed to get done and wanted to get done in the span of, I think, an hour and a half for the morning. And you were there for 3 hours. I think we left with 45 minutes left for the morning because we all finished really quickly. I still went around because they also have a bookstore option upstairs where they'll have a lot of those indie books published and printed where you can go and buy some more books, learn some new authors, stuff like that. I also like to just kind of roam when I'm good and done with everything that I had on my list and just see what new authors draw me in. I had that happen a couple times this year, and it was really exciting, especially some of the vendors have some really cool stuff that they didn't have up for pre-order. I've always bought from like Hello Lovely Box. Their t-shirts and stuff are really cool. The ballroom was a little bit more chaotic because I had a lot more to pick up and I just kept getting the ticketed stuff. The one author I know I ran to for this year was Scarlett St. Clair because she said she had a limited number of her newest release and I wanted to make sure I got a copy, so I ran to her booth. But yeah, I had really good numbers. I had really good luck. Everything was moving really seamlessly. I didn't hear a single complaint of people not seeing authors, which is awesome. And I think that this new ticketing system they're going to continue with. So I hope that that works out really well again this year. But yeah, just planning out some form of strategy, splitting your books between A and B, and having a plan, just any plan, really helps cut down on the anxiety. I was still anxious that I wasn't going to see everybody in the ballroom, but that was just because I'm naturally anxious. So, but having the plan kind of helped, and seeing all the checked off stuff was really nice and super helpful for me. And then, yeah, then you figure out how to Tetris your way back home. For us this year, we had to buy another suitcase, which was a mistake. But that's on us. If you plan ahead better than we did and have more impulse control, you should be fine. So, like I said, you are able to do everything and see everyone that you want if you plan it correctly. I hope this has been really helpful. It's really fun to just kind of go through my process on how I prepared for Apollycon. I love the event. It's really fun. While it is a bit stressful of a few days, meeting the authors are so sweet. Being all around fun, bookish people is great. The products are awesome. Everything about it is phenomenal. I know why the event is just so popular. I'm a little sad I won't be able to go this next year. We're still kind of hunting on the resale thread in hopes that we'll find something. But that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have more questions that I didn't answer, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you guys have. With that, thanks for watching. We post every Wednesday and Friday, and I will see you guys in our next video. Bye!